The Entrepreneurial Journey podcast. We're talking business and building a culture that's kick-ass. Where we make it happen, grab your seat, let's have a blast. At the Entrepreneurial Journey podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Entrepreneurial Journey podcast. Today I have Maria Anderson with me. She is a menopause coach. Hello, Maria. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me, Rebecca. Absolutely delighted to be here today.
Oh, absolute pleasure. Lovely to see you. Now, you've got a really impressive career. Can I just say, you spent 38 years in the NHS. You trained midwife, is that right?
Yes. So I trained as a nurse first.
Right.
So I did my 3.5 years nursing as initially, because I didn't do direct entry into midwifery at that point. That's how how long ago it was. And then I trained as a midwife, and I have been a midwife for 35 years.
Wow, that's a very long time and a lot of babies.
Oh, a lot of babies, probably over 1,000 deliveries, I would say.
Wow.
So in my combined experience of working in community, working as a community midwife, working in the delivery suite and working in various hospitals throughout the UK, a lot of babies and very varied experiences as well.
Yeah. Now, obviously this is an entrepreneurial podcast.
Yes.
So we're not going to dwell too much on the NHS career, but you've done many roles within the NHS. And I often think there are entrepreneurs within large organizations. And from the track of your career, the path of your career, it seems like you're always forging ahead. You always looked at things slightly differently. So tell me about your journey through the NHS before we get to your business.
Yeah, so that's absolutely true. I've never really thought about it like that, but yes, it is. So I am a long life learner. I always have been, and I think that's been. I'm very curious. I always ask questions. I like to understand, and I always like to test and learn things and think, right, okay, if this is not working, how else can it work? And I suppose working in the NHS, you've got to be very resourceful, and so that was one of the qualities that I probably showed all the way through my career, was that resourcefulness of, a lot of times, with budgets and, not a lot of resources within the NHS. You have to be creative. You have to think out the box, and you have to think, okay, what is the way around this issue, or how can we think about things in a different way? So I suppose that's where it's always come from. So I trained as a midwife. So I was a midwife and worked in lots of different areas. So I worked in Newcastle, that's where I'm from. And also I then went into work in London. So I worked there for 8 years, and I did a lot of home births, water births. Wow. And so I suppose in those kind of situations, it's about your decision making, resourcefulness, off the cuff kind of decisions, or, not, you have to just react to different situations, but you also have to be prepared for any kind of situation as well. So there's a lot of that. And then I also, I loved learning myself, and I loved working with students. So I took on that role in whatever role I was in, actually, that I always loved looking after the students and helping them to understand, breaking things down into a simple way so they can then help women to, have the best experience in childbirth. And right. And that took me into different roles where, certainly when I was working as a midwife, I was always that education person as well. And then I went into I did my postgraduate diploma in education, did my degree, and continued on that. And I intertwined it throughout every role that I had. And so then I became a registered lecturer in midwifery, and worked in various universities as well alongside my role. So But the thing was with the education, and this is a little bit of where it's taken me on the journey, is that yes, you have education and you have knowledge, and that's great. But for me, I was still more curious, because what I wanted to know was what were the results of my students or anybody I was working with. What is the result of what we're doing here today? How can I measure what the outcome is? So then that took me into a quality improvement role, where I became a healthcare improvement leader within Scotland in the NHS. And so I used to run big healthcare improvement programs. And that was the so what. So when I was working with staff, and it's not about the people doing a bad job in any kind of situation. When there's any improvement, it's always about a system and a process that is not working. And so I love working with people. So I was like really encouraging staff to think as well in a different way. And also in my improvement role, it was, I could measure the outcome. So when there was the small changes, and staff started to think in a different way and looked at the systems that they were working in, how it was really improving patient outcomes, and they also the staff experience as well.
The outcomes of patient care is really interesting. And I think sometimes we have listeners all over the world who don't use the NHS and perhaps don't understand the weird relationship us Brits have with the NHS. In that, I think often patient outcomes are forgotten actually in the politics of the NHS, because it's such a political football. If you had a magic wand, what would you do to sort out this huge organization that clearly doesn't work well for everybody at all in the way it should do? What are your insights? What would you do, Maria?
Look after the staff, number one.
Yeah.
So that is when the staff are feeling that they are cared for, that they are communicated in a meaningful way, that they are truly cared for, they will look after patients and clients in a very positive way. And it's because if you have staff who are tired and feeling exhausted and not valued, then it's very difficult for them to show up really, and they do in the NHS, but at the detriment of their own health. Yeah. And I work with a lot of NHS staff as well in what I do. So I would say look after the staff. I would also have systems and processes that actually effectively influence outcomes for patient care. So what is working for patients? What are the outcomes of that? What is the data around that? And actually be influenced by that and have a very much of a open mind about that. Sometimes what you think is going to work is not necessarily the thing that makes the difference. So have data to influence and guide every part of what is working in the NHS and what is not.
Yeah. It's the same in business. It's exactly the same in business. You look after the people, you get the culture right, and you work out what works for everybody, in business, it's the clients, the customers, and the people working in the business. And if you get all of that right, it works. And you're absolutely right, Maria. It's actually not usually what people think it is. It's actually usually simpler, I find. I often think, and I don't know, I've never worked in the NHS. I've coached people in the NHS, but I've not worked in it. And I often think, and I see this in business as well, people try and overcomplicate things all the time. And actually the solution's usually really straightforward. So after dedicating to your life, really what sounds like a vocation, 38 years in the NHS sounds like a vocation to me. It doesn't sound like just a job. What was the catalyst for you to go, right, I'm going to set up my own business?
So for me, I did become burned out, and I was, it was impacting my own health. And what I didn't realize at the time was I was actually experiencing perimenopause symptoms.
Oh,
So,
okay.
so I was just putting it down to, I'm juggling a family, I'm juggling a very busy life, I'm juggling so many things in my life, and I'm busy, busy, busy. I never prioritize myself at all. And I think that's a cultural thing that I had been conditioned into to from working in the NHS. And I got to a point in my life when I'd had my 2 children later on in life. So I was in my mid-40s, I would say, and I felt that actually I am not sure what I'm doing here. I actually felt really confused. I felt I was going a bit crazy in terms of I had lots of roles within the NHS with lots of responsibility, and I felt like I was going a little bit crazy in the fact that I had lost my confidence completely. And I didn't understand why I'd lost my confidence. Physically, there was lots of things happening, like my eyebrows fell out. My periods were all over the place.
God.
And there was lots of physical things, and also how I was feeling. I felt like I was second guessing myself a lot, and I was having to work really hard on that. And I was keep putting it down to, oh my gosh, is it because I'm getting older? Is it because this? I am not understanding why I'm feeling the way that I'm doing. And I had also just quietly in the back bedroom of my house wrote a book, Tales of Midwife, which was a really great experience in terms of I wrote it. I was, I never told anybody I was writing it.
Wow.
I hadn't told my employer. I hadn't told any of my friends, and I hadn't told a lot of people about it. But it was almost like a cathartic. I wanted to write it because I wanted people to know that you don't go from being not very confident as a student to being really confident as a midwife. I wanted to do it for my children so they understood that actually I did have a life before them, and also a little bit of insight into how it was to work as a midwife. And that was before all of the one born every minute, and call the midwife, that wasn't on the telly. So it was quite an area where nobody really knew. But so I wrote it, and that was great. But then I realized that actually I was told by the publisher, we've got a lot of publicity to do here. And this is where I really struggled.
Right.
And so the book came out. I thought I could be divorced, struck off the register and sacked in one day because I hadn't had anybody to read it. And so I was thinking, oh my gosh, I was really nervous. So I even couldn't start that conversation. But the important thing is what I wasn't prepared for was publicity. And I wasn't prepared for how that was going to really impact me in a way of how I was feeling and how I was really struggling with actually coming out and being very public with the book. But when I joined the Dots going back, as I was standing outside Waterstones and I was waiting to do a book signing, I really struggled. And the guy came out and he said, "Are you coming in, Maria?" I said, "Yes, I am." And he said, we've got a lot of people here to come and see me. And at that point, I was having these, this feeling in my stomach. I was feeling not very confident, and I was thinking, oh my gosh, I was really worried. And at that point, I thought, I need to sort this out. I need to understand what is happening, and I need to understand what is going on. And that moment sparked this real change in this direction of personal development. I recognized I need to prioritize myself. I wasn't prioritizing. I felt it was a luxury, that going off to spas, and now obviously self-care and prioritizing yourself is, yes, it can be part of that, but it's a whole lot more than that. It's about clear boundaries. It's about your energy, managing your emotions, all of these kind of things. And I started to look at my life and pay attention in a very different way. And this took me on almost like was about a 7 or 8 year journey to really figure out that actually it was my hormones that were really causing me an
Oh,
issue. I was in the perimenopause, and
right.
and at first I thought, is it imposter syndrome, but actually it wasn't. It was actually my low hormone deficiency at this point that was causing me to feel like this. And so I thought, I cannot be, and even though I've got all this healthcare background, I am still experiencing this.
Yeah.
I understand hormones. And so I decided I cannot be the only woman feeling like this. And if I am feeling like this, what are so many other women feeling like? And so this was a real platform. I couldn't take the platform of what Tales of a Midwife was, presenting to me. I just had to, at that point, I wanted to just quietly go away, and I couldn't take any of the opportunities at that point. I just quietly got back into my own life, but decided to do the personal development. And
Right.
as I went through that journey, I then recognized that I wasn't alone, that there was so many other women feeling like this. And this is what really gave me this opportunity to think, actually, I, as a coach and as an improvement leader, I can help other women. And
Yeah.
how can I do this? And how can I get my message out? And what can I do in a way of something that I absolutely love, that I can embrace it and do something completely different from the NHS. So
Yeah.
that's
It's
rocket.
it's incredible. So I was at my checkup for HRT, and one of the things it hadn't solved for me was interrupted sleep, because I know many women get interrupted sleep. Their sleep patterns are awful. And I was getting brain racing when I woke up in the night, and HRT didn't do anything to help that. And somebody suggested magnesium to me. And then I did a bit of Googling, and like the stats are 80% of the population are deficient in magnesium and blah, blah, blah. I just literally started taking one magnesium tablet at bedtime, and one, slept through, and two, even if I did wake up, I could get back to sleep without the brain racing. And I thought, how many people know about this? And the nurse that was seeing me, she said, I've never heard of that. She said, I'm going to try that now for myself. And it's like, why don't the NHS know about this, or doctors or nurses know about it? Because it's so simple and it would save us a fortune. What stops that information getting into the system, do you think?
What stops it is because there is no training for the 60% of GPs and medical care staff and health professionals have had no training in menopause or perimenopause.
Okay.
And it's not even on the, there's a real push now, to actually change the system. But remember, we're actually going to, where we are right now, we're working with a system. And I remember what I said about systems. We're working with a system that is actually not supporting women to get the outcome that they want.
Yeah.
So it's thinking it creatively, and remember all the things that I said about the quality improvement role. How can we work creatively? What can we do in resourceful way? And actually, unfortunately, a lot of women are experiencing, going to their GP and not getting the care or the information that they absolutely want and that they need, because of the system is not supporting GPs and health professionals. And also, it's not set up. A 10-minute appointment it's frustrating for GPs as well. I can look at it from a health professional point of view. It's frustrating for GPs. They're not set up to be able to support women in a really supportive way because of the system's not supporting them either.
Yeah, definitely. Or men, actually, for that matter. Anybody. It's just not working for anybody. So let's talk about your business, because I know how long has the business been established for?
So I started coaching in 2018.
Okay.
That's when I started coaching. But it was an evolving process. I always think I knew what I wanted to do in terms of coaching, but it was tweaking it into what was my gift, and what was it that was going to really have a major impact. So I started coaching women generally on prioritizing themselves, because that's where I was. And then what I noticed over that period of time, and probably more so last year, all the women that I was coaching were either in the perimenopause or menopause. That was
Okay.
the light bulb for me. And so I thought, okay, this is where I am absolutely going to focus myself, because that I had my own experience, I had done all of my own work, and I can get very specific here with women specifically who are experiencing this in perimenopause. So that's how it evolved into specifically perimenopause and menopause.
Right. Yeah. And you have to tell all our coaches niche, 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 niche
Absolutely.
down. Because once you find, like, I like that, your gift, once you find your gift, then people are drawn to you and attracted to you. And and you clearly have a huge amount of expertise to give. And I like the fact that you've got a good, solid medical background, because there's so much out there that potentially is snake oil and
Yeah.
just not working. But I like the scientific, and before we came to the interview we were talking about data, and you're really strong on data.
Yeah.
What has come out of your learning since 2018 that you didn't know before, that you've like, oh, okay, that's quite surprising from the work you've been doing so far?
So I would say at the beginning part of when I first started in 2018, I didn't collect data.
Okay.
Even though I was still working as a quality improvement practitioner. So I was
Okay.
collecting data all day in my everyday job, but
Right.
I was doing it part time. I was a bit of that, just let's see, dipping my toe into this world of entrepreneurial journey. And I think that's where a lot of people start. Is
Yeah,
this
they
something
do.
that really, is this, what is it? And so I didn't actually retire from the NHS until last year, when I
Oh,
realized to be able to I suppose put a lot of my time and effort and really get a lot of traction in my business, I need to do it full time.
mm.
And that's, I just needed to take that leap of faith. However, during that time, I did start collecting data. At the very beginning I didn't, but then when I started to collect data, I recognized the things that were working for the women's outcomes and clients' outcomes, but also the things that were not working for me as well
Right.
inside my business. So, obviously we all know that inside your business you've got the metrics, and what are the metrics. So, what I originally started with in terms of my messaging, if that's not clicking in with my audience, then
Mm,
I need to really fine tune my messaging. and
mm,
and so who is actually picking, how many people are actually interested in engaging with me, and looking at the metrics of all of that inside the business. And I think to do that, and I suppose part of my journey was, I had to really drop the ego, not take things personally,
yeah.
and also be open to new ways of working without any judgment. I was unattached to outcomes as well.
Music to my ears, Maria. This is what I train our coaches and consultants. You've used so many. Have you read our materials? For a
No,
start, our entrepreneurial journey has a thing called leap of faith. You're absolutely right. You, at some stage, you have to go all in
yes,
and just go, it's like jumping off a cliff and going, oh, I know there's a safety net somewhere, but you've got to go all in.
yeah,
And you're absolutely right. As a coach, you cannot be attached to the outcomes, otherwise you'd go insane. And you absolutely right, no judgment. These are all the things we train our coaches and consultants to do. You are where you are, the client is where they are. You offer them a set of keys that they can pick up to unlock their potential, or whatever it is in your terms, their health benefits. And it's up to them to pick them up and run with them. And you cannot make them in any way, shape, or form. Great lessons. Brilliant. Yeah, sorry, I interrupted. Carry on.
Yes, no, and that's great, because, and also in any kind of and certainly from a quality improvement, and just to share with your listeners as well, you don't start collecting data on anything until you have your baseline data. What are your metrics from the very beginning? So how do you know, if you don't know what it is from a baseline perspective, how do you know it's an improvement? So that's really important to do. And that's why a lot of people, have great projects and think, oh, I'm just going to go into that. And actually then they start getting great results, but they can't prove that this is what it is that's worked, because they haven't got the baseline metrics, the data. And
Yeah,
so, sorry.
No, I was going to say that's really important. Now, I've got a question around that, because the work we do is about culture and embedding cultures in business. And a lot of our baseline data is very subjective.
Yes.
Because it's a feeling. And yes, you can see outputs in profit and loss and revenues and reduction of staff turnover. You can have those. Interestingly, when you start building really great cultures, sometimes your staff turnover might go up.
Yes.
Because people go, oh, I don't actually want to be a part of this. It's a bit too much like hard work, or, people who are being a bit naughty in the organization have to be moved on. So yeah, it's really interesting when you're studying the baseline data for your clients. What are the key metrics that you're looking for, that you're basing that on?
Energy.
Energy. Oh, right. Okay,
So
cool.
I use this because, so for example, and I use this in the NHS as well, but certainly for my clients. So if you have, say for example, an energy of, give yourself an energy of 1 out of 10, 1 to 10. 1 is I have no energy. I'm really, I've got no energy at all. 10 is I'm feeling amazing, absolutely, and linking that into emotions. Where are you in your emotions? Red, amber, or green? And so,
Right.
even if you didn't do any other metric for yourself as an entrepreneur, if you are an energy of 1, and then how are you absolutely measure it? How are you showing up in your business? How easy is it for you to do the things that you need to do if you're an energy of 1? So it's an inside job. We all know that it's got to come from your internally first. It's how are you showing up? What is your energy levels? So if I and work to that, and so I help women, certainly, because if you're perimenopausal and you're a business owner and you're thinking, right, well, I've got an energy of 1 and I don't understand that. Is it just because I can't do it anymore, and I'm not able to do this, and I'm just not good, I can't do it, when actually it's a perimenopausal issue.
Yeah.
And understand why your energy is low. And so when you get the baseline data and start it up with energy and emotions, then you can start to understand a bit more about yourself. And then it's like, actually notice when you are in energy of 1, how is that impacting your clients? Are you getting the results from your clients? And notice as you go through this process, if you are an energy of 8 or 9, what impact is that having on for your clients? In what service are you providing? How are you showing up? What energy are you bringing to the table? And actually, what is the impact from that? You will attract more people into your world if you have good energy. And so,
now, here's a question.
Yeah.
And I've never asked this question. I've interviewed a few menopause experts and coaches and nutritionists and all the rest of it. What happens post menopause? Does that energy come back naturally? I've always wondered this. What happens after perimenopause when you're postmenopausal?
So let's get the definition first. So perimenopause is a time in your life where where your hormones start to fluctuate, where your body is starting to change in terms of your hormones are starting to decline, okay? So that's the perimenopausal stage, where it can, it can be, average age, people say 45. I think it's a bit earlier than that.
Mm.
And this is a stage that can last 4 to 10 years, okay?
Mm-hmm.
It's a long stage. And this is where lots of women just don't know. This is where they feel, I'm not sure what's going on in my life. I'm getting really stressed. It can be either the car crash, and periods are all over the place, lots of physical symptoms, emotional symptoms, all of these kind of things. And menopause, the definition of menopause is when you have had 12 consecutive months without a period and 1 day. Okay. So menopause lasts for, hang on for it, 1 day.
Oh, okay. Right. Okay.
This is going to blow your mind. Menopause lasts for 1 day. Everybody talks about menopause. It's the perimenopause that lasts for years. Postmenopause is 12 months and 1 day. You go straight into the next day. You go straight into postmenopause. Now, I have a lot of women who are postmenopausal. I am postmenopausal. I am 56, feeling the most energy that I have done for a long time. But the thing is, if you don't, it's a low hormone deficiency. So if you haven't actually addressed it in the perimenopause, or in that perimenopausal stage, you will still have all the symptoms. Unfortunately, it's just going to get worse.
Oh, okay. I understand. So it's so important to deal with it during perimenopause.
Absolutely.
So that your post-menopause years are as good as they possibly can be. Right.
Absolutely. So
wow. That is mind-blowing, Maria.
And this is why I always use the analogy of the perimenopausal stage is almost like bringing yourself out up the river, and before you hit the waterfall, because the postmenopausal stage, I have a lot of women who come to me in postmenopausal stage and think, oh my gosh, Maria, you're my last chance saloon, and I honestly cannot continue to live my life like this. What can you do to help? It's never too late. I will always say that. And so the thing is actually, that's why I want to help women to join the dots going forwards instead of going backwards, and actually start to put in some of these measures that will actually help you. And remember, menopause is an opportunity. I think it's a gift for women to really take an opportunity to look at their life and through a non-judgmental lens, and especially for business owners and entrepreneurs, is how do you want your health to look like when you're in your 50s, your 60s, your 70s, and your 80s. And that's what the end goal is. And so if you can take the measures now and take the steps of action right now, you are going to be living the life and loving in your business, in your family life, and you're going to love it. And so because you optimized your health.
Yeah, totally agree. Now, this is amazing stuff. And in my show notes, there'll be a link to your website, which is mariaandersoncoaching.com. I've got one last question, Maria, and that is, if your business had a personality or a character, how would you describe it?
A personality or character, I would say something of energy. It's got to be something very high energy. I would, is it a Duracell battery? I don't know, in terms of it's the long lasting renewable energy, and it's not the, if you, so I would say, you've caught me off guard, and I'm saying this absolutely raw, but I think you can, this is where you can try the small plugins that maybe you have to are quick fixes, but actually by investing in in yourself, in your time, in your energy, in your business, if you want that long lasting, rechargeable, renewable energy, long lasting, you need to be aiming for that Duracell or that, and I'm not involved with Duracell.
Oh, the batteries are available.
Yeah, it is. It's almost like that sustainable process. You need sustainable process in your business that are going to last you, that you are learning, yes, test and learn all the way through it, but you need that real solid foundation. And also it's about your own energy and also the energy of your business. How sustainable is it? So yeah, I would say that
Brilliant.
for me.
Amazing. Listen, best of luck with your business. I know you're going to be helping many, many women sort their energy levels out. And I love it. Thank you so much for your time today, Maria. That's amazing.
I really appreciate being here, and hopefully your listeners will take one thing away from it. So thank you so much for inviting me. Been a pleasure.
The Entrepreneurial Journey Podcast. We're talking business and building a culture that's kick-ass, where we make